เขาวิดีโอเริ่ม
Just now, I am looking the website of the conference. The
เสียงไม่ออกนะเสียงของเขาไม่ออกอ๋อจากโอซาก้าไม่เขาเริ่มแล้วนี่เริ่มแล้วฮะนี่เริ่มรายการไปแล้วนะ
ต้องเริ่มใหม่ยังไม่ได้สตรีมค่ะ
ยังไม่ได้สตรีมเข้าเลยค่ะอาจารย์อันนี้แค่ซูมวิทยากรค่ะถ้าเริ่มจะต้องนับเขาดาวแล้วก็ถึงจะเข้าสู่การสตรีมต้องเป็นการเริ่ม
นี่อาจารย์ประกิตเรียกเขาสปีกเกอร์พูดแล้วเปิดได้แล้วหนูเปิดไปเลยไม่ต้องแล้วเปิดเลย
Pete, I can always make my presentation now while they're sorting it out. Oh no.
It's okay now.
Okay.
Yeah. Our next speaker, which is we all know. Actually, she do not need any introduction. Okay. But anyway, I think maybe they will have some new faces attending this session. Professor Judith Mackay is probably the oldest tobacco control advocate in Asia I know of. Maybe in the world, because that was back in 1984, like that she started working on tobacco control. Judith is a British medical doctor. She lived in Hong Kong since 1967. Initially, she was a hospital physician. She's an internist, if I remember, and also on cardiology, attending patients in ICU. Okay. But since 1984, concentrated on public health, especially tobacco control in Asia. And then her work has increasingly focused on countering tobacco industry tax. Several years ago, the tobacco industry listed her as one of the three most dangerous tobacco advocate in the world to the tobacco industry. She is director for the Asian Consultancy in Tobacco Control, special advisor to GGTC, the Global Center for Good Governance Tobacco Control based in Bangkok. She is also senior policy advisor to WHO. She is a founding member of APAC. And in addition to many international awards, ranging from the WHO Commemorative Medal and the Time 100 Award to the first BMJ Group Lifetime Achievement Award. She has been identified by the tobacco as one of the three most dangerous people in the world, as I mentioned before. Judith, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Prakeet, for that nice introduction. I'm just getting my slides up. I hope this isn't a problem. My goodness, we all seem to be having technical problems this morning. I'm sorry about this. Here we go.
Okay.
I think this should be it. No, not quite. With screen sharing. There we go. And Just trying to get it to full screen. I'm sorry about this too. It should just come up in a moment. And I'm speaking about heated tobacco products and what it is that Asia should do. Here we go. Thank you very much indeed for the opportunity to speak at this conference on really such an important topic, because everywhere in Asia we are now faced with what to do about e-cigarettes and the new heated tobacco products. And we hear later from Japan some of the things that have happened there when the products have been introduced into the market. So what I would like to do with this talk is to look firstly at the industry and the market, secondly the harm of these products, and then thirdly what action can be taken. And I think we should note that the heated tobacco product industry is now basically owned by Big Tobacco. It's owned by the companies that we know so well and we've been fighting against for the last half century practically. And I think it's worth remembering that we have previously been misled by the industry. The tobacco industry, the same tobacco industry, has told us twice before that they have a safe product. They told us this about filters, they told us this about low tar, and both of these turned out not to be safe at all, to be untrue. So I think we have to be very skeptical about this third claim that they have a safer product. And you will see with this advertisement for IQOS on the right that they are certainly giving across the implication that it's soft and white and beautiful and a very nice thing to do. They're using the same kind of marketing techniques that we're so used to. But if we look at the heated tobacco product global market, this is the one in green. The e-cigarette markets are the red and blue below. But if you look at the heated tobacco product market in green, from 2011 until this year, you will see, this is global, you will see that these have increased quite exponentially, in fact, and are set to go up. So this is a problem not just in the past, it's not just now, but it certainly lies in the future as well, that the global size market will be increasing. So we must be on our guard. Looking at the products are very trendy, electronic products with great appeal to use, with embedded software, as we've heard from Greg Connolly. And both of these offer a real risk of renormalizing smoking, just as many countries in Asia are beginning to reduce their smoking rates. They're very attractive to youngsters to try. They've got accessories, there's limited editions, they've got designed with cartoons. You can see these don't look to me like the products for middle-aged smokers who want to quit. They look like the products that are there to attract the young and the very trendy. They use youth in their promotion. You can see here the advertisements with a little boy, and you can see the trendsetters starting to use the IQOS products and promoting them on social media, in particular on social media, which is so difficult to regulate. They're marketed as this lifestyle and trendy product. They've got, in Ukraine, for example, a street food festival. They go around sort of gigs and things like that, offering free samples. And they sponsor parties and universities with free samples. Where they are allowed to advertise, particularly in the United States, you've got disgraceful advertising, which I think reminds all of us who can remember what it was like back in the 70s and 80s with advertisements for cigarettes. The same sort of messages and the same sort of images are coming out with these new products. Again, these do not, to me, or to anybody, I think, look like products for middle-aged smokers trying to quit. There's certainly the use of the influencers. These are influencers on the social media. And these are people who are very well known and trendsetters. And they have recruited, obviously, many of them to promote their products. And again, these are very difficult for countries to regulate because they, firstly, are trans-border. And secondly, they often originate from a country distant from where we're trying to regulate them. There's a lot of indirect market. They market the product and the brand as trendy, and they create a sense of aspiration associated by these posts from social media advertisers. And between January 16 and March 2018, and there will be many, many more now, there were over 18,000 posts uploaded to Instagram referencing burn tobacco products or using branded hashtags, according to the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. And if we were, in fact, to look at that now, the number would be infinitely more. They market them at very affordable prices and give various choices and very soft colors, very nice pink colors for the ladies and so on and so forth. There's there for every kind of youth. They are marketed as trendy and lifestyle products. They've launched exhibitions in Hong Kong with racing cars. That's the macho one for men. They've got lovely, beautiful signs and beautiful colors. This sort of blue and turquoise color and the purple color. They're promoted in model competition events such as in Sweden. I hardly need go on. They're certainly after Asia, and I think you'll hear from Dr. Tabuchi more about that. But they've got signature stores in Japan that are sleek and cool and beautiful. IQOS cafes in Italy and London, Plume signature cafes and stores in Japan, and another signature store in Kiev. They are popping up all over the place. This is why the matter is quite so urgent. And they're certainly looking to create this IQOS market. Again, we are in Japan, and you can see these again are youngsters. They're people they're presenting it to and offering them the samples. These are not middle-aged smokers who want to quit. And we can see from the map on the right that there is a strong heat stick share growth in Japan, really over the last couple of years. So having said all of that, can we just look at some of the harm that heated tobacco products do? We know from various, we know from various publications already from the United States, heated tobacco products contain nicotine, which can harm the developing adolescents. No tobacco products are safe. That really has to be the message. So there's many research projects emerging on these products. But remember, we have actually had cigarettes, ordinary cigarettes on the market now for 100 years, and we're still only finding out some of the harms of the product. So it's not surprising that with heated tobacco products that have only been on the market for such a short time, that there is a lot more to come in terms of their safety. And particularly if we look at research in Asia, this is beginning to emerge to tell us what is the effect here. For example, in Hong Kong, the 2021 study, a cross-sectional study of 33,000 plus students with a mean age of about 15. Former and current HTP use was associated with persistent respiratory symptoms amongst youth. In other words, the harm was being evident in youth. It wasn't a case of waiting 30, 40 years till you got a heart attack or cancer. Now there were persistent respiratory symptoms. They were more prevalent, interestingly enough, that those only who used heated tobacco products and ever dual users than people who were using cigarettes. And these findings suggest that using HTPs instead of cigarettes may not reduce the health risks. Another study in Hong Kong in 2017, a population-based cross-sectional study on 5,000 HTP users. There was a warning here which was interesting, and that is that it's a higher socioeconomic status and income was associated with HTP use and intention to use. So the public health education traditionally and more has been focusing on the lower social economic class, because we know with cigarettes now, it was the middle class who first took them up 100 years ago. It's the middle class who are now quitting. And traditional cigarette use is found much more, for example, amongst workers on building sites than it is amongst people who go to university. It has become a lower social class habit. Now, the interesting thing of this study is that it shows that these new products are very much taken up by the higher socioeconomic class. So it's going to have to make us rethink some of our health education and health promotion. So these, in fact, if anything, are new users, people who would not really, we would expect to start smoking ordinary cigarettes, but they're starting on these new trendy products. This is a really important study. Yet another study in Hong Kong in 2016 to 2019, a prospective cohort study. And these were on young people who were actively trying to quit smoking at the time of the study. And they looked at those who were using just cigarettes and those who were using HTP and a mixture. And the interesting thing was that HTP users were less likely to abstain from tobacco than the ones who did not use HTP, less likely to abstain. So in other words, young people are not switching to HTP. Switching completely is actually not what is happening on the ground. They're starting to dual use. And even worse, from this study, HTP are making it harder for young people to quit smoking. So these results suggest, according to the authors, that HTP should not be promoted as smoking cessation or reduction aids, particularly amongst the youth population. And in fact, these studies are consistent with studies from Japan, which we will hear about soon, and Korea, that found that 86 to 100% HTP users also smoke cigarettes. We're finding that amongst the adult population, and this study shows that we're finding it amongst the young population as well. So the few studies that have come out in Asia up to now, I think are all very indicative that we really have got a big problem on our hands, and we should not regard these as benign products. Our next slide. HTP, what does WHO say about this, looking at this around the world? HTP products, they say, are promoted by the tobacco industry as reduce harm products and to help people quit smoking. But WHO says there is currently not enough evidence that they are less harmful than cigarettes. HTPs, in fact, have many toxic emissions which can cause an additional harm. And there's no evidence at all yet to support the claim that HTPs reduce tobacco-related diseases and deaths, even if their users completely switch from cigarettes to HTPs. And as I've just said on the last slide with the data from Hong Kong, WHO confirms that the majority of HTP users are dual users. They use HTP and cigarettes. And we've heard about the embedded technology in them, which I think should be causing more concern than it is at the moment. It's rather sort of slipped away from the radar screen, but it's got embedded digital technology. And the companies will tell you, oh, this is just to help us, monitor how people are smoking and so on. But as as Greg indicated in Prakit's summary just recently, these could trigger off the desire to have another HTP product. There's many things we do not know about the embedded technology. So looking at HTP and e-cigarettes, a lot of people are quite confused as to which are the more dangerous or which are the least harmful. I would put it which are the most dangerous. We've got very limited danger, but it's certainly that HTPs are more harmful than e-cigarettes. And HTPs release many more toxicants than e-cigarettes, including carcinogens. So the WHO conclusion is that all forms of tobacco are harmful and there is no safe level of exposure to tobacco. So what really should we do in Asia about this? What action should we take? WHO makes a recommendation that acknowledges that they have not been on the market long enough for their effects to be studied in full. So we cannot yet draw permanent conclusions about their ability to assist with quitting smoking, although it looks at the moment that's not very helpful, the potential to attract new youth, although again, it looks as if they do, or their interaction in dual use with other conventional products and e-cigarettes. So there is a large knowledge gap. And I think it's probably true to say, I'm showing you, surprise, surprise, a picture of aeroplanes, but if you will remember the Boeing 737 MAX that kept crashing, and the causes of these crashes were uncertain. And regulatory authorities around the world said, when we don't know, we should apply the precautionary principle in the interests of health and safety, health and life. And they halted, they grounded all of these planes until the cause and the danger of the 737 MAX was known. So in a sense, the new products, e-cigarettes as well as HTP, I think should certainly come under that category of applying the precautionary principle. We do not yet fully know where the dangers lie. We know there are dangers. We just don't know the extent of the dangers. And as a precautionary principle, they should be grounded. They should be banned until we have a much better idea. Now, the other thing that 737 MAX shows us is that up until the crashes, the regulatory authorities, national and global regulatory authorities, left all of the testing and the safety statements on these planes up to the airline industry itself. And I think the Boeing 737 MAX is a very good example how you cannot leave regulation to the industry. And that is another principle that applies to cigarettes. We cannot leave the regulation of cigarettes or heated tobacco products or e-cigarettes. We cannot leave these to the industry itself. We've got to have government authorities who actually are protecting us from the dangers of these products, whether it's a 737 MAX or whether it's a whole tobacco class. So what WHO has recommended is to ban HTPs entirely, or ensure laws at minimum, ban TAPs, the advertising, promotion, sponsorship of them and their devices, apply all packaging requirements to HTP and devices, such as banning misleading packages and labeling, and requiring plain packaging and graphic warnings, ban HTPs in all indoor public places and other smoke-free areas, prohibit flavorings, tax them at the same rate as conventional cigarettes. And certainly one thing we all should be doing is including HTPs and e-cigarettes in all our monitoring. It's very important nowadays that they not be separate assessments of prevalence. They should be, all countries now, when they do their national prevalence studies, they must be including HTP and e-cigarettes within that monitoring situation, because we need to see what's happening up to one in relation to the other. Now, it pains me to put up this slide, I have to say, because it says you can regulate, you can pass laws with the short of a total ban. And I think this is a big problem, because if you passed partial laws, or even quite strict laws, regulation is acceptance. Regulation means that a country has accepted the product and is trying, yes, to try and keep it under control. But I think when we have not got them on the market in particular, it's really much more important that we ban a product before it becomes on the market. And this is not some wild dream. 17 countries already have legislative bans on tobacco. 3 countries ban the sale of them. 2 countries ban the imports. 12 countries have banned HTPs under existing laws. So there's already 17 countries with legislative bans. And there's another 12 countries that have adopted new laws on HTP. And they vary, I'm sorry, let me just go back up. They vary between country and country. But I think it's important to understand that when a country tries to ban both e-cigarettes and heated tobacco products, that they are not alone. They're not out on a limb at all, as the tobacco industry would have you believe. And even more countries, 40 plus countries, have actually already banned e-cigarettes, and we do need to remember that. I'll just use an example. I've got a little extra time because Greg is not able to join us. So I'll just give an example as to what has happened in an Asian country, in Hong Kong. Our prevalence rate is about 10%. So the risk of new uptake and smoking resumption brought by the introduction of these products far outweighs any theoretical harm reduction claimed by the industry. And we're finding already in Hong Kong that HTP, the prevalence of them in students, is higher than in adults. So it shows that already they are appealing to the youth market. And the unchecked entry of new tobacco products into Hong Kong and Asia poses an enormous public health risk. And I would certainly say don't experiment with our children. We do not want these products here. If we look at the campaign for bans in Hong Kong, the government is actually on side. It's the legislators that we've had to lobby. So we've had seminars in Hong Kong with international experts. We've had press conferences and press releases. We've had TV debates with the industry. Here is me sitting with somebody from Philip Morris on TVB in Hong Kong, having a rather heated, not just a heated tobacco product, it was a rather heated debate on the very subject. We've had rallies, as you can see at the bottom, held outside our Legislative Council. our political body. We've lobbied LegCo members. We've looked at international research and also research in Hong Kong. We've had a signature campaign, 100,000 signatures by the Council of Smoking and Health and also the main Teachers Association. Parent survey shows they do not want these products on the market, but much of the time we have been spent countering tobacco industry claims. Just to flesh these out a little bit, the Hong Kong's Council on Smoking and Health asked about enacting a total ban on alternative smoking products to protect public health and the next generations. And 100,000 people collected by COSH submitted to Legislative Council, signed on to that. The study on parents was recently done. 9,000 Hong Kong parents, 75% of whom called for a complete ban on e-cigarettes and heated tobacco products. Because, as we know, once allowed on the market, there's no turning back. And teachers and educators, if you are in a campaign to lobby for a ban on these products, call upon the teachers, the students, and indeed the parents to try and support you with this ban, because the evidence is from many countries that the parents do not want these products back on the market. As I said, there's no turning back. The 10 head teachers associations and school councils have urged LegCo to pass the bill banning these. This is very recent in Hong Kong. Saying, please ban these products. We do not want to see them on the market. Now, what does the industry say about the opposition to the Hong Kong ban? Very similar to what it says to proposed bans around the world. And the arguments are very similar for both e-cigarettes and heated tobacco products. It opposes the proposed ban, especially these are the companies, PMI and Japan Tobacco, also the Tobacco Association in Hong Kong. This has organized visits and media interviews of pro-harm reductionists like Farsalinos, Derek Yak from Foundation for a Smoke-Free World and Public Health England. And their mantra is, these are safer products, they increase quitting, they save lives. And one of our Hong Kong legislators said to me he had never seen such lobbying in Hong Kong on any topic, and he's been a legislator for more than a decade, as there was on e-cigarettes and heated tobacco products. So I think it shows just how important these new products are to the tobacco industry. They summoned hundreds of people to give evidence off the street. Visitors to Hong Kong were brought into Legislative Council to give evidence. Now, interestingly enough, most of the arguments were about HTP, and surprisingly, the industry seemed to have conceded the e-cigarette ban. So most of their lobbying is on the topic we're looking at today, the heated tobacco products in particular. The bill was put on hold 2 years ago because of the vandalization and closure of legislature, because of the riots that we had in Hong Kong, but it is currently under review, and we should have within the next few months some kind of answer on this topic. I would come to a close by saying Asia can do it. We look back on the history of Asia and we see that we have a number of firsts, a number of achievements. In 1970, Singapore was the first nation to have a national ban on advertising and to create smoke-free areas. In 1987, Hong Kong was the second country in the world to ban smokeless tobacco. In 1987, Hong Kong was the first government-funded NGO on tobacco control in Asia when they established the Hong Kong Council of Smoking and Health. In 1991, Singapore again was the first to ban incoming duty-free cigarettes. Thailand established the Thai Health Promotion Foundation, funded by a percentage of tobacco and other sin taxes. By 2007, in the Western Pacific region of WHO, all countries, every single country, was a party to the FCTC. And the Western Pacific region remains to this day the only WHO region in the world where every single country has ratified, has signed on to the FCTC. In 2010, the Philippines made news by the fact that you will all remember that Article 5.3 of the FCTC is all to do with keeping the tobacco industry out of policy. And the Philippines was the first, more than 10 years ago now, to actually have formal regulations for its civil service about meeting with discussion, very strict regulations about how civil servants should deal with the tobacco industry. And in Australia, of course, there was the first a year later in 2011 on plain packaging. So Asia actually can do these things, and they can do them ahead of the pack. Of course, they can do them by following other countries as well, like we follow Australia with the plain packaging. But Asia can do it. They have the ability to actually take the lead. And the next step is the ban on these new tobacco products, because as we've heard, once the genie has escaped from the bottle, there's no turning back. I'll just remind you what Article 5.3 does say. In setting and implementing public health policies with respect to tobacco control, parties shall act to protect these policies from commercial and other vested interests of the tobacco industry in accordance with national law. Now, the thing to really remember here is that people tend perhaps to think of government as a civil service, but it's much broader than that. The FCTC is a whole of government position. It's a whole of government signed it, not just the Ministry of Health. But even wider than that, it includes all three branches of government: the executive, in other words, the civil service, the legislative, and the judiciary. So that the people who are in our parliaments, who are in our congresses, who are in our legislative councils, these people are as much bound by Article 5.3 as are the people in the civil service. So at minimum, when these bills and these laws come up to Parliament, when they're discussing HTP, they should, either these legislators should sign an affidavit, they have no connections, financial or otherwise. Many countries require them to say they have no financial links with, for example, the tobacco industry, but it's more than just financial. It's the influence and the connections and the coordination with the industry as well, with the tobacco industry and its affiliates and its associates. If they do not sign, they should not be allowed to participate in the debate or to vote, because essentially big tobacco must not be allowed to entice our children with the new products under consideration. So this is the conclusion. WHO has said it, and I will repeat it: all forms of tobacco are harmful, and there is no safe level of exposure to tobacco. And I just end with the picture of me on the roof of where we live in Hong Kong, fighting, doing my Tai Chi practice and fighting tobacco, and also fighting the HTP industry. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith, for that excellent presentation, and many lessons should be learned from the experience of your talk and then the situation in Hong Kong, which we will leave it with a discussion part. Now, Dr. Tabuchi has partially solved the problem with his presentation that he had difficulty presenting the slide, but he has a video that will be shown now, and then he will stay on to participate on the Q&A session after his video presentation. So the admin, please show Dr. Tabuchi's video.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to report current status of smoking cessation with heated tobacco product use in Japan at this important conference. I'm Takahiro Tabuchi from Osaka International Cancer Institute, Japan. I have no COI. Before talking about how to quit smoking, I would like to tell you about the state of tobacco use in Japan. In Japan, prevalence of current tobacco use decreased gradually during recent 10 years in both sexes, especially among men. Among men, from 38.8% in 2009 to 28.5% in 2019. Among women, from 11.7% in 2009 to 8.1% in 2019. Recently, heated tobacco products, HTPs, came into the market. HTP are electronic devices that heat tobacco leaf and resembles to electronic cigarettes. In other words, e-cigarettes, in terms of producing aerosol. The most popular brand of HTPs is IQOS. IQOS was sold since November 2014. Japan Tobacco, JT, began Ploom sales online in December 2013 and launched a new product, Ploom Tech, in March 2016. Furthermore, JT began to sell Ploom S recently. British American Tobacco started to sell a HTP Grow from December 2016, but also began to sell GrowSense recently. These are electronic cigarettes, e-cigarettes, not HTP. First generation e-cigarettes looks like combustible cigarettes. Third or fourth generations, pen type and tank type e-cigarettes are sold worldwide. E-cigarettes with nicotine liquid were major products worldwide, but in Japan, because nicotine-containing e-cigarettes are prohibited by pharmaceutical laws since 2010, so e-cigarettes are not popular in Japan. Currently, the most popular brand IQOS is marketed in more than 40 countries, including Korea and the US. In 2014, Philip Morris International introduced the IQOS in Japan and Italy only. However, most IQOS sold in Japan. As of October 2016, Japan accounted for 96% of the global share of IQOS sales. The figure shows the prevalence of current HTP use among Japanese adults aged 15 to 69 years old from 2015 to 2019. Current HTP use means use in previous 30 days of any HTP. Here we can see dramatically increasing prevalence of current HTP use. Overall prevalence of HTP use was 0.2% in 2015, then became 11.3% in 2019. Out of HTP users, more than 70% also currently smoked combustible cigarettes, namely dual user. most of HTP users did not stop cigarette smoking. To show an aspect of HTP's health impacts, blood nicotine concentrations of IQOS and combustible cigarettes are compared in this graph. Please see the shape of the two lines. Although IQOS's concentration is slightly lower than cigarettes, they have almost same time course of blood nicotine concentration, suggesting that nicotine dependence would be maintained by both tobacco products similarly. I will avoid talking about the overall health effects of HTPs in this presentation, but I can tell you that switching to HTP will keep nicotine dependence at least. Objective of this study is to consider the influence of HTPs on smoking cessation practice. We compared the proportion of different methods used by smokers in their attempts to quit during 2016 and 2018, namely before and after the diffusion of HTP use in Japan. This is method of the study. Data from the Justice Study 2016 and 2018 was used. We asked quit attempters for their quit methods. Options include over-the-counter smoking cessation aids such as nicotine patch, smoking cessation treatment at smoking cessation clinics, including varenicline prescriptions, HTPs, and/or e-cigarettes as a way of smoking cessation, and unassisted quitting, namely quitting without pharmacological aids or other interventions. This is result. How are Japanese smokers trying to quit? In 2016, before the diffusion of HTP use in Japan, the percentage of each quit methods implemented by the 133 quit attempters were 22% for over-the-counter smoking cessation aids, 14% for smoking cessation treatment, 25.6% used HTPs and/or e-cigarettes as a way of smoking cessation, and 72% tried unassisted quitting. Next, in 2018, the percentage of each quit methods among the 376 quit attempters were 22% for over-the-counter smoking cessation aids, 15% for smoking cessation treatment, 51.6% for HTPs, 28% for e-cigarettes, and 42% for unassisted quitting. Collectively with HTP and/or e-cigarettes, the figure was 64%. From 2016 to 2018, the percentage of HTPs used as quit methods increased considerably, with HTPs being the most common quit methods in 2018 at 52%, more than half. Compared with other countries, is this figure big or small? A study among the U.S. adults aged 18 to 64 years old in 2018 shows that out of 308 quit attempters, 14% used e-cigarettes as a way of smoking cessation. This denominator does not include former smokers, so a simple comparison of results is not good, but it does show that HTPs and or e-cigarettes are used more often in Japan than in the US as a way of smoking cessation. A decreasing tendency in the number of smoking cessation visits was observed in Japan, along with HTP's diffusion. Number of smoking cessation therapy in Japan decreased from 250,000 in 2014 to 140,000 in 2017. A part of this decline in the number of smoking cessation therapy may be explained by smokers' HTP use as a way of smoking cessation. This is conclusions. HTPs can interfere with all tobacco control measures, including smoking cessation therapy. We need to monitor not only use of HTPs, but also the impact of HTPs on smoking cessation and our health. I am very happy if we can collaborate with Korean scientists to advance HTPs research. For our collaboration, please let me briefly introduce the JUSTICE study. The Japan Society and New Tobacco Internet Survey, a longitudinal internet cohort study of HTPs, e-cigarettes, and conventional tobacco products in Japan. Annual internet survey has been conducted since 2015. Approximately 10,000 general populations were randomly selected from Internet Survey Agency panelists. Most results of HTP in Japan came from this study. Details are available from this study profile paper that were published in the Journal of Epidemiology. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Tabuchi, for your presentation about situation of the IQOS and other heated tobacco product in Japan. Before I open for participants to ask question to the audience, to the speaker, I just want to inform the participant about the timeline of the Thai law banning e-cigarette, which include the heated tobacco product. Now you saw on Dr. Tabuchi's slide that Philip Morris launched the ICOS in Japan, which is the world premiere launching in November 2014. We started our consultation process how to deal with e-cigarettes in October 2014. At that time, we have no idea about ICOS. We have the e-cigarette, liquid type of e-cigarette in the black market. And then we were concerned about the suppress of this e-cigarette use among youth, and it's among youth that we saw increasing. So we have a consultation to ban this product. At that time, we know a little bit about heated tobacco product, ICOS, in the news. And actually, we have to trace back. Originally, Philip Morris called it the e-cigarette, the ICOS. But in Thailand, we call it dry e-cigarette, a liquid e-cigarette. A liquid e-cigarette is an extract of nicotine and then make into nicotine e-cigarette juice. But the ICOS is a grounded tobacco leaf and then put on chemical and then construct the heat strip. So we informed the legislator that this is the e-cigarette, a dry e-cigarette. So in December of 2014, we started to ban e-cigarette, which is including the liquid e-cigarette and the heat not burn e-cigarette. So this has become a battle with Philip Morris, ongoing battle that they try to lift the ban of Thai law banning e-cigarettes, and then claiming that heat not burn is not an e-cigarette. But in any way, in our law, the definition of e-cigarettes is any product that contain nicotine. It does not mention about the whatever tobacco leaf or whatever. So the law is still intact. And then we learned from Professor Judith Mackay that how they've tried to pass the law banning. We have to use the same tactic, how to maintain our law banning the e-cigarette in Thailand. Okay. So for this brief information, I open this session to a question and answer from participants. We have about 25 minutes to discuss about this topic, how to Asia should go forward for this issue. So please, any question, comment? Judith, or Dr. Tabuchi, you have any more comment on this about the situation in Asia? Actually, while I listened to your presentation, I was interesting to know that the broom tech is kind of different from the heat stick. You mentioned it's like it. So why was it not banned? Because you were banning a liquid type of e-cigarette in the Japan using the Poison Act. Can you let us know more about it, Dr. Tabuchi?
Thank you for question. Important question. Plume Tech is categorized as a tobacco product because they use tobacco leaf. So Japanese government decided Pulm take is tobacco.
Okay. Okay. Uh-huh. Judith, you had any comment, further comment or question?
Mute.
The question is is any other country controlling the HEP? I think Dr. Judith Mackay has shown that more than 10 countries has control, specifically control heated tobacco product. But Judith, there were WHO report there were 32 countries banning e-cigarette. And do you have the breakdown of, for those countries, they both ban e-cigarette and the heat-not-burn cigarette, just like in the case of Thailand. Can you give us more detail on that?
ช่วยเปิดมิวให้ดร. Judith ด้วย
Judith? Oh, it's muted, Judith.
Please unmute.
Thank you. I've been asked to unmute me. The organisers have now unmuted me, so I can answer the question. I'm sorry, Pricky, could you repeat that question? I was just trying to get myself unmuted on
the question is that they asked a question: how many? Is there any other country that ban the heat-not-burn e-cigarette, heat-not-burn cigarette? And I mentioned that your slide show more than 10. My question is that the WHO report that there were 32 countries ban e-cigarette. Whether that includes heat-not-burn or no, just e-cigarette.
These are two separate issues, and some countries are banning both together, and some of them are banning just the e-cigarette. So the numbers are exactly the same. In general, more countries have banned e-cigarettes than they have the heated tobacco products. But there's no real logic in that, because the heated tobacco products are indeed more dangerous than e-cigarettes. So we find different things in different places. So I think we're all struggling. I think all countries are struggling with what is the best way to go ahead. But I think if you have the opportunity, as we have at this moment in Hong Kong, to try and ban both of them, then that obviously is the ideal situation, rather than pit one against the other. Yes.
Okay. The question, the same question, he just clarified. He's not asking the ban. Probably other regulatory option. The question, the person answered the question is Dr. Vivat. I think I just very quickly say that several countries, different countries have different law. Some ban it altogether for e-cigarette. Some regulate it as a tobacco product. A few countries regulate it as a smoking cessation medication. Majority of the country, over half the country around the globe, do not have law on e-cigarette. Okay, just like country in Myanmar, for example, they still do not have law. But the industry claiming that the whole world is allowed legally sell cigarette. In fact, it's not. It's less than half, about half of the country in the world which have the law regulating e-cigarette, as I mentioned before. Some of them for ban, some of them regulate tobacco product, some of them regulate as a consumer product. Okay, so any
yes, it's about 100 countries. 100 countries have already got either a law, a ban, or some kind of regulation on e-cigarettes. So I think the problem is we are doing catch-up, to tell the truth, that these products have been recently introduced into the market, and we're scrambling to do the research and to do the regulation and to do the legislation. And, you know, one might have thought by now, after 100 years of tobacco being on the market, that we might be much further towards elimination. But the problem is, you know, we have new challenges the whole time, whether it's with a new product or a new organization or a new industry tactic. There's absolutely no way that we are going to be rid of tobacco in our societies, but I'm afraid for some decades to come. And the new tobacco products, the only thing I would say is that there is also a danger of these new tobacco products distracting us from what is the main message, that we have got to get combustible cigarettes. We've got to get the prevalence of those right down as far as we can and get them on the market. It's very easy to be distracted by these, so we focus too much on them. We have to focus on them, but too much, so that, you know, our main task in getting the combustible cigarettes off the market doesn't get sidetracked. I think there's a danger there. And I see, Prakeet, that there was a question to me about working in Hong Kong now that the politics have changed in Hong Kong. I think the first thing I would say is that, you know, I work with kingdoms, I work with communists, I work with democracies, and to tell the truth, it's very, very similar. It's the same product, it's the same harm, it's the same obstacles in all these countries, and it's the same thing that needs to be done. So in one sense, the issue of tobacco control overcomes politics. Of course, it's highly political and you need political will. But the reality is that all these countries under different political systems are really basically fighting the same fight with all our might, I hope. And certainly in Hong Kong, our civil service and judiciary is unchanged. Our legislature has changed a bit. We've had, I can truthfully say, we've had no interference from China in terms of tobacco control. That is proceeding, you know, as it was. And, you know, public health policies, as I say, override any kind of domestic policies and government systems. I've worked recently in North Korea. It's just the same as working in some of the democracies in Asia. It's remarkably similar what needs to be done in the whole scenario.
Judith, interesting in your presentation that your bill, which is include both both type of e-cigarette and new tobacco product, but seems the industry is fighting mainly for the heated tobacco product, and then they were maybe not fighting the e-cigarette. Now, if that is the case, June, if you eventually pass part of the ban for only for e-cigarette, not heater, June will be barred from marketing in Hong Kong, right?
That's
Am
true.
I saying correct?
Yes, it's true.
That's interesting.
It's slightly puzzling as to why this is happening. And it may be just the power of the different companies, because it's Philip Morris who are basically making all the noise. And of course, their main product are the heated tobacco products. So it may be to do with the companies themselves, but it's actually counterintuitive, because the heated tobacco products are more dangerous than e-cigarettes at every count. So it doesn't really make much sense. But the politics on the ground in Hong Kong is that they've almost conceded e-cigarettes. They're fighting the last-ditch battle to try and keep heated tobacco products on the market. That's true. So it may vary from country to country, and the presence, it might be different in Japan, where you've got a bigger presence of Japan Tobacco, but also Philip Morris, compared with some of the other companies.
Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Tabuchi, any comment? Yes.
I would like to add some information from Justice study. I will share my slide. Can you see?
No.
No?
It has not come up.
เขาแชร์ได้ไหม
My PC.
Yeah, okay. Now I see it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I would like to introduce my book, Science and Practice for Heated Tobacco Products by Springer. This book contains all aspects of heated tobacco product problems in Japan and worldwide, and focusing on Japanese evidence using the Justice Project data, because Japan is a test bed for heated tobacco products. So we need to product evidence from Japan about heated tobacco products. So I will introduce some studies. Title is Use of Heated Tobacco Products in Smoke-Free Locations in Japan, the Justice 2019 study. We aim to examine the use of heated tobacco products in locations, 3 locations, home, restaurants, and workplace. In results, the proportion of heated tobacco product users who had ever used HTPs in smoke-free locations in the last year was 20.7% at home, 11.8% in restaurants, and 11.9% in workplaces. In Japan, a considerable number of people used HTPs in locations where tobacco smoking was not allowed. HTPs make interference to all tobacco control measures, including smoke-free policies. Policymakers should establish clear rules about use of HTP in smoke-free environments. Another study is heated tobacco product use and combustible cigarette smoking relapse initiation among former never smokers in Japan. The Justice 2019 study with 1-year follow-up. The present study aimed to investigate whether HTP use was associated with combustible cigarette smoking relapse initiation among former never combustible cigarette smokers. Of respondents, 5.2% smokers never or former smoker used HTPs at baseline. 1 year later, 1.7% non-HTP users and 12.7% HTP users were smoking combustible cigarettes. Among former smokers who had quit for 1 year or more, and among never smokers, HTP use was significantly associated with combustible cigarette smoking 1 year later. HTP use was associated with relapse initiation of combustible cigarette smoking after 1 year. The risk of HTP use, including subsequent combustible smoking, should be carefully monitored. We will continue to study about HTP in Japan. So I will inform as soon as possible in future. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present these studies. Thank you.
Okay, there were two questions. One is
Okay.
what is about the situation of e-cigarette in Thailand. The second question is about the second-hand and third-hand health effect of e-cigarette. I will leave the second question for Judith to respond. Okay, I will give information on the situation of e-cigarette in Thailand. By law, it's illegal, but it's available on the internet. Okay, delivered by mail, and then on the black market. Now, we have several small survey about the youth in using e-cigarette compared to other tobacco products. Found it is quite high. It comes second as a smoking product. There's smoke cigarette, and then second is e-cigarette, including it's although very low percentage, but it's increasing in health professional university student. Okay. Now, but the latest national survey January, February, March this year, we were surprisingly to have the figure, that the absolute figure about 78,000 e-cigarette user among 15 years up. Okay, 15 years up, which is about 57 million. So it's about, actually, it's less than 1%. We were very surprised about the effect, but the data. But this is for the whole population, the entire population, including older age up to 65 and up. And this is a very thorough survey by the National Statistics of covering more than 80,000 households around the country. So we believe that we had this similar survey 4 years ago. It increased about 10 times, but it's still very low. So now our argument is that even what we are seeing now is available in the black market and young people smoking. We think it will be worse if we legalize it. It will be worse. That is the reason we try to convince the government to keep the ban. So I'll leave the second question for Judith to respond to the health of second-hand and third-hand e-cigarette vapor. Judith?
Yes, thank you. I think it's true to say that there's quite a lot of studies now coming in on the harm of both e-cigarettes and heated tobacco products in a second-hand sense. And that could be on another adult, it could be on a child, and it could be, for example, if a mother vapes in pregnancy, an effect upon the fetus. And I think there's quite a lot of studies. I was just looking on my computer, dozens of studies, I would say, that have now come out. For example, with second-hand vaping while pregnant, there seems to be a rather unusual birth defect of the face, just to give one example. There's also been linked to respiratory illnesses in people who are passive vapors, if one might use that term. So I think that there is definitely an effect, a second-hand effect, from both e-cigarettes and from vaping upon non-smokers, for example, to answer your question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other question?
Yes, sir. I think we have 5 minutes for this session. And that was one question, sir. As WHO, I would say that about the COVID-19 spreading situation, WHO declared that e-cigarette is definitely a factor of COVID-19 spreading. So how about the heat tobacco product? How would you convince the danger of the heat tobacco product concerning with the COVID-19, sir?
You need to respond? Yeah.
There was an interesting session yesterday looking at WHO with two people from WHO, one from the Tobacco Free Initiative and one from the FCT Secretariat. And we were discussing the science as it is at the moment. And I think there are two issues here. One is, does it make it more likely you will catch COVID? And the second question is, if you catch COVID, is your outcome worse if you're a smoker or a vapor? The answer to the second question is definitely yes, your outcome is worse if you catch COVID. The first question is, does it make you more likely to catch COVID? What the representative of WHO said, that of course intuitively it does, because to start with, you're taking off your mask, you're putting a cigarette in your mouth, breathing out smoke with all of the viruses and things within it. It seems to be much more a situation that you are more likely to catch it. The definitive answer from that, she said, we're still awaiting a peer group review article. The problem with COVID is there's many, many articles coming out, but because of the time, they're not all peer reviewed. But she said the answer is probably yes. It looks as if you are more likely. And in fact, in Stanford, they did one study there on young people, and they found that children who vaped were 5 to 7 times more likely to catch COVID. So we've got some good individual studies. We're just awaiting peer reviewing coming back, nothing to do with vaping, but just a question of peer reviewing coming back into the process rather more robustly than it is at the moment to make a definitive global statement. But certainly common sense and studies like the one from Stanford indicate, yes, you are more likely to catch it, but B, we know for sure that if you do catch COVID, you are more likely to have a worse outcome, more likely to be admitted to ICU, more likely to die. So these products definitely have a COVID link.
Yes. Yes, another question about it. Are they different between the second-hand smoke effect of between e-cigarette and heat-not-burn? I think, because of time, I think they both has risk, but how different is the risk, we don't know yet. Okay, at this stage, we need more research data on it. Now we have 2.5 minutes left. Yes.
I would just say, I think from a logical point of view, e-cigarettes have got just nicotine in them, whereas the heated tobacco products are tobacco products. They've got all of tobacco in them. So they contain a lot more by way of carcinogens. So these, of course, are both breathed out. So logically, one should assume that the heated tobacco products are more linked with serious side effects than are the e-cigarettes, which makes them, again, more dangerous. And I see Dr. Tabuchi is nodding his head with that too. Yes.
Dr. Tabuchi, do you have any more comment? You would like to inform the participant?
Thank you. It's very difficult to examine the true effect of HTP because most HTP user is former combustible cigarette smoker. So we need to collect detailed smoking statuses about combustible cigarettes, second-hand smoking, and HTP use, because these factors are all time-dependent variables in the epidemiological study. So it's difficult to examine the effect, but we need to try and continue to study using epidemiological data.
Yeah, Judith, do you have any last word you want to take away?
My takeaway is that of the WHO, that there is no safe tobacco or nicotine product.
Okay. So, okay. With that, I think we learned a lot from Professor Judith and Dr. Tabuchi about this evolving situation of use of heated tobacco product in Asia, Pacific, and globally by Judy Mackay. The best policy, of course, is to ban it. Okay, but Greg Connolly has mentioned that if we cannot ban it, at least we should control the technology in manipulating nicotine level, which they have done that before. And so this is will be the take-home message that e-cigarette is harmful. E-cigarette is very many more questions than what we know. Okay, and then we should treat it with should be banned if possible. Okay, I think I will conclude this session and thank Professor Judith McKay, thank Dr. Takahiro Tabuchi, as well as Greg Connolly, who unfortunately cannot join. And thank you very much. And I close this session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, everyone. We close the session and see you again.